What's up guys, Jonny May here, and welcome to this week's quick tip where I'm going to teach you 5 approaches for improvising on dominant 7th chords when you play jazz. Now when I hear a lot of jazz students improvise on dominant 7th chords, they'll use one scale called a Mixolydian scale, okay, which is a great scale to start with, but if you want to create more interesting sounding lines, you need to know some of the other scales that we like to use, and there are actually 5. So you're going to learn all 5 today. Let's go ahead and dive in. So when you're soloing over dominant 7th chords, you're typically playing these chords in what is called a 2-5-1 chord progression. It's one of the most common chord progressions in jazz. So quick review of these chords: the 2 chord in the key of C is D minor 7, the 5 chord in the key of C is G7, and the 1 chord in the key of C is C major 7. Now we're going to get rid of the 2 chord just for now and focus on the 5 chord, which is the G7. This is the chord where you can typically use a lot of these really cool chord colors. So this chord progression we're going to look at today is a 5-to-1 chord progression, or G7 to C. The way I recommend playing this in the left hand is to use what are called chord shells. And whenever you're playing kind of interesting scales in the right hand, you only want to use the essential notes of the chord. In this case, for a G7, the root, the third, and the 7 will make this chord, give it the chord quality. Okay? So we're going to jump from root to F and B. These are called guide tones. Okay, or chord shells. You can learn more about chord shells and guide tones at Piano with Jonny. We've got a ton of exercises for these. But basically go root to chord, and we're going to sort of sit on this chord for a while. Eventually you'll resolve it to a C major 7 like that. Root up to the guide tones. Okay, so that's going to be your left hand approach. Root chord on the G. We're going to repeat this a bunch of times as you work on these scales, and then we're going to go to our C major 7 like this. All right. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for more videos just like this. What I want to do here is I want to talk about the first scale that I recommend using if you want to solo on dominant 7th chords. This is called the G Mixolydian Scale, and this is a great scale. It's an easy scale to get started with, and the basic idea is I can play any of the white notes over this chord. Okay, see all these really cool lines I can create. And again, this scale uses only white notes. The scale, in case you're wondering, if you were to start this on a G, would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F, natural, and G. Okay, this is called the Mixolydian scale. It's kind of like a G major scale, but there's no F sharp, which is normally in a G scale because we're playing on a dominant 7th chord. This is also called a dominant or G dominant scale, in case you're wondering. It's a great scale to get started off as a beginner. You can create a lot of really, really cool lines with this scale. And actually, if you want to do a deep dive on all the ways that you can create lines with this scale, we have a course on this called Scales for Improv, and it's a deep dive on all how to solo over all chord types in jazz. I do want to play this with a backing track. This lesson here comes with a backing track, and here it is. Okay, so obviously you can see there's a lot of really cool ways to create lines. By the way, this backing track is downloadable, as well as the sheet music you're seeing here on the screen. It's printable. You can also put this in any key with a click of one button with our smart sheet music. All of that is at the link below. I'll put a link to both of those. I do want to move you on to the next scale. This is called G Mixolydian Sharp 4, and this is the first basically altered note that I would add to your dominant 7 chords. If you're playing a G7, this sounds kind of vanilla, right? It's all white notes. It doesn't sound very interesting to me, but we can make it more interesting by raising the C to a C sharp, okay? And the C you can think of as the 4th note of the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Or you could think of it as the 11, because we build chords in thirds, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So that C is 11, you raise it up to C sharp, and then you get this really cool sounding scale. Basically, it's G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F, and G. Okay. This scale, if you were to see this in a chord chart or a lead sheet, you'd see it as a G7 sharp 11 or G7 flat 5. They mean the same thing. It's the 5th note of the scale lowered. It's the 11th of the scale raised. You could see this as a G9, a sharp 11, or G13, sharp 11. It doesn't matter. As long as you see that sharp 11 or your flat 5, this is a really good scale to use. If you want to take it up to another level, actually, I'm going to go ahead and do a little improv over this one, show you what it sounds like with the sharp 11. Okay, sounds really, really nice, and as you can hear, that C sharp is really quite a nice color. Let's go ahead and play with this with the backing track, and I'll show you some little improv tricks you can do with this. Kind of playing eighth notes. Okay, those are some triplets. Okay, those are called turns. Here's some outline sevens. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of cool little tricks you can do. Again, if you want to do a deep dive on this, you can. And our Scales for Improv course, I'll put a link to that below. Level 3, okay, if you want to take it up to an even higher level, what can you do with this scale? Well, we're, again, dealing with our G Mixolydian Scale. I said you could raise your C. Well, guess what else you can add to this? You can also add a B flat. Okay, this is called your sharp 9. Okay, this is one of our chord alterations you can use on a dominant chord. And we're going to add this to our scale. Okay, so now we have G, A sharp or B flat, B, C sharp, D, E, F, and G. Okay. Now I call this the Mixo-Dominant Diminished Scale. It's kind of a long name, but basically it's a dominant diminished scale, okay, which you're actually going to learn later, but it's a mixture of that and the Mixolydian scale. The thing for you to remember is it's like the scale we just learned, except we're adding a B flat to it, okay? You see that? G, A, B flat, B, C sharp, D, E, and F, okay? This particular scale is great to use on a G7, sharp 11, sharp 9 chord. This A, once again, or this A sharp is called the sharp 9. You could also use this on a G7, flat 5, sharp 9 chord. These are chords you'll see in jazz music. If you're not totally sure what I'm talking about, you want to learn more about chord alterations, you can over at Piano with Jonny. We've got whole full-length courses on these topics. Okay, here's how this would sound. Let's go ahead and play this with the backing track, and again, I want to show you some of the variety of lines that you can create. Lots of cool ideas here. Again, if you want to do a deep dive on this, check out that Scales for Improv course. The fourth level of jazz harmony that I would definitely add if you want to take up a level is what I call the dominant diminished scale. Okay, the dominant diminished scale is just like the scale we just learned, but it has one more alteration, the flat 9. Okay, here's how the scale goes: G, start on a G, then we go A flat, B flat. Okay, the A flat's called the flat 9. The B flat is once again called the sharp 9. The B is called the 3rd. Then the C sharp is the sharp 11. The D, the E, and the F. Okay. If you don't know these chord extensions and alterations, once again, it comes from the chord, all built in thirds. If you keep going up a third, you have a 9, an 11, and a 13. These are called extensions, and you can learn more about these over at pianowithjohnny.com. Okay. So again, the dominant diminished scale, this is also a half step, whole step scale. Starting from G, you go half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, and half step, okay? Dominant diminished scale. It's also the diminished scale, but we won't get too crazy into the theory. You can use this scale if you have a G7 chord that calls for a sharp 11, a sharp 9, and a flat 9, okay? Once again, the sharp 11 could be called a flat 5, okay? Let me show you what this sounds. I'm going to do some improv, and I'm going to sort of walk you through what I'm doing here. Playing mostly eighth notes. Okay, those are called little turns. And then triplets. Okay, lots and lots of cool sounds. This is actually my favorite scale of them all. So lots you can do with this scale. The final scale that I would use if you really want to take it to that high level is called the altered scale. The altered scale. Okay, how does this scale go? Basically, we're going to alter every possible combination here. So we're going to take our same scale, okay, and check it out. So G, A flat, B flat, B, C sharp, D sharp, okay? This, or E flat, you could think of as the flat 13, okay? You could also think of it as a sharp 5, all right? And this is the last alteration that we can use on this scale. And then we get our 7th, our F, and then back up to our G, okay? So once more, G on the bottom, this A flat's a flat 9, A sharp is a sharp 9, B is our 3rd, C sharp is our sharp 11, E flat is our flat 13, F, and G. Okay, that's a very cool sound. Okay, let me show you what this sounds like with the backing track and show you the kind of stuff I do with this. Eventually you do want to resolve this to some type of C chord, but again, you really want to make sure you can solo comfortably on these dominant 7th chords. You see them a ton in jazz. Alright guys, this concludes this week's quick tip, and if you enjoyed this lesson, I encourage you to check out pianowithjohnny.com. We have over 700 step-by-step lessons in jazz swing, Latin jazz, cocktail jazz, theory, technique. It is the full learning platform for all playing levels. Also, be sure to check out the Piano with Johnny membership. This gives you unlimited access to our entire course library. Plus, you get to be part of our live monthly events, including our live Q&A, where you can ask me practice questions, our live workshop lessons, you can ask me questions during the lesson. We do student assessments where you can send me a video and I will give you personalized feedback. We do weekly challenges for our members, and we have a ton of fun. So go check out Piano with Johnny, and I'll see you in the next one.